Mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says all the circumstances of life are arranged to teach us that beyond mind, faith in the divine grace gives us the strength to go through all trials, to overcome all weaknesses, and find the contact with the divine consciousness, which gives us not only peace and joy, but also physical balance and good health. With always our love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, Book 7, the Book of Yoga, Canto 1, The Joy of Union, the Ordeal of Foreknowledge, page 473. Until it seemed no power could rend apart, since even the body's walls could not divide. For when he wandered in the forest, oft her conscious spirit walked with him and knew his actions as if in herself he moved. He, less aware, thrilled with her from afar. Always the stature of her passion grew. Grief, fear became the food of mighty love. Increased by its torment, it filled the whole world. It was all her life, became her whole earth and heaven, although life born, an infant of the hours, immortal, it walked unslayable as the gods. Her spirit stretched measureless in strength divine, an anvil for the blows of fate and time, or, tired of sorrow's passionate luxury, grief's self became calm, dull-eyed, resolute, awaiting some issue of its fiery struggle, some deed in which it might forever cease, victorious over itself and death and tears. The year now paused upon the brink of change. No more the storms sailed with stupendous wings, and thunder strode in wrath across the world. But still was heard a muttering in the sky, and rain dripped wearily through the mournful air, and grey, slow drifting clouds shut in the earth. So her grief's heavy sky shut in her heart, a still self hid behind, but gave no light. No voice came down from the forgotten heights. Only in the privacy of its brooding pain, her human heart spoke to the body's fate. End of Canto 1. Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo taken from the collective works of our Lord Sri Aurobindo book, The Mother with Letters. Topic, The Mother's Force. Subtopic, Progress in Sadhana and the Divine Mother's Force. Question, when you say to someone, says the sadhak to our Lord Sri Aurobindo. When you say to someone you are open to the mother, do you mean open in a general way? Are not all in the ashram more or less open to the Divine Mother as soon as they have been accepted by the mother? And when the mother has accepted a sadhak, does her force not begin to work in him? And is it not always with him? For this, our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, all are not open to the force. They are shut themselves in their own self or their own formation, ideas, or desires. If there is no opening, the force may act for a long time without response. If there is an insufficient opening, then the progress will be slow and checkered by great difficulties. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says on 23rd March, let nothing and nobody come between you and the Divine Mother's force. Let nothing and nobody come between you and the Divine Mother's force. It is on your admitting and keeping that force and responding to the true inspiration, not on any ideas, the mind may form that success will depend. Even ideas or plans which might otherwise be useful will fail if there is not behind them the true spirit, the true force, and the true influence. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, if you cannot advance in your sadhana because you are divided and do not give yourself without reserve, you speak of surrendering everything to the Divine Mother, but you have not even done even in the one thing which she has asked of you, which you have promised more than once. If, after having called the action of the divine force, you allow your influences to prevail, how can you expect to be free from obstruction and difficulties? Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, it is assumed that you are capable of the change since you are here in the presence of the divine and under the protection of the Divine Mother. The pressure and the help of the Divine Mother's force is always there. Your rapidity of progress depends upon your keeping yourself open to it, rejecting calmly, quietly, steadily all the suggestions and invasions of other forces. Especially the nervous excitement of the vital has to be rejected. A calm and quiet strength in the nervous being and the body is only the sound basis. It is there for you to receive if you open yourself to it always. The mother's force is working in all alike. The mother's force is working in all alike. According to their capacity, they receive it. It will work in them. If there's a difference, it is in their nature that makes it. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, this restless mind and unquiet vital are not peculiar to you. They are human nature from which every sadhak starts. What you have to get is the Divine Mother's force and grace, bringing with it deliverance, peace, and ananda, which you say from time to time experience. That in the beginning does come only for a short time, but as you persist in the path, it increases in frequency, stays longer until it can be made a permanent experience. It is this that will cure the defects in you. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says, all has to be done by the working of the Divine Mother's force, aided by aspiration, devotion, and surrender. The Mother has already given you orally the answer to your letter, the directions you asked for. Your concentration should be in the heart center, and all the rest the rising above the head, should come of itself as a natural process in the process of sadhana. Through the heart, you will get closer and closer touch of the Divine Mother and the working of her force in the whole being. A symbol of harmony can be brought out in the human nature in spite of the present imperfection when one gives it the true torch, that is, put under the true psychic influence. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says, always keep open to the mother's force. Let the inner consciousness develop. Only that will help and deliver from all difficulties as the openness in the physical grows in you. Question: there are some people here who remain constantly in despair and gloom because they have become conscious of their minutest imperfections. They are unable to get rid of them. For this, our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, they are unable for two reasons. One, because they yield to despair and gloom and the illusion of impotence. Two, because they try only with their own strength, do not care or know how to call in the working of the mother's force. Question: sometimes I feel a thick wall between me and the divine. All other times there is a pressure on me and I feel quietude come into me. For this, our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, perseverance in spite of the fluctuations. The mother's force is at work all the time, even when the thick wall is there, so that there may be no wall in future. The mother's force is not only above on the summit of the being, it is there with you, near you, ready to act when your nature will allow it. It is so with everybody here. It is not necessary to ask for the power to work. It is the mother's force that must work in the being, and if it is there, it is necessary that it will come. It acts by awakening the inner consciousness gradually or swiftly by replacing the principle of ego service by the principle of service of the divine, by making them watch his actions, see his defects, and pushing him to rectify them, by establishing a connection between his consciousness and the mother's consciousness, by preparing his nature to be taken up more and more by the mother's consciousness and force, by giving him experience which make him ready for the major experiences of yoga, by stimulating the growth of the psychic being, by opening him to the mother as the universal being. Next subtopic: reliance on the Divine Mother's force. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says there has always been too much reference or reliance on the action, on your mind and will. That is when you cannot progress. If you could once get the habit of silent reliance on the power of the Divine Mother, not mere calling into to support your own effort, the obstacle would diminish and eventually disappear. You should not rely on anything else alone, however helpful it may seem, but chiefly, primarily, fundamentally on the Divine Mother's force. The sun, the light, may be a help and will be if it is the true light, the true sun, but it cannot take the place of the Divine Mother's force. Quietude first, with it, confidence in the Divine Mother's force that is working on you. When the physical mind is obliged to be quiet, it has this impression of inactivity and dullness at first. When it opens more and more to the force, that impression will disappear. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says, if you give consent to the Divine Mother's force, the working alone, then nothing will happen. It is not always an attempt. One receives the thoughts and blessings of others without any attempt or intention of theirs because they are in the atmosphere. The depression comes upon you because you accepted the thought that you were not doing what you should, not using the chance the mother had given you. Such thoughts should never be indulged, for they open the door to depression, and depression opens the door to old moments. They used to come formerly from the idea that you were unfit. Now it is this idea that you are not doing all you ought to do. Lord Aurobindo says, as a matter of fact, you have been progressing with surprisingly rapidity for the last few days that we ourselves did not expect. But whether the progress is rapid or slow, the attitude should always be an entire faith, reliance on the Divine Mother. Just as you do not think that the progress was the result of your own effort, but of by taking the right attitude of reliance and the mother's force working, so you should not think that any slowness or difficulty was due to your own demerit, but only seek to this attitude of reliance and let the mother's force work, slow or rapidly. Keep the reliance steady in your heart. Do not allow self distrust, depression, or sadness to invade you from outside. Question: how can I do yoga when I know nothing about your yoga? I don't even know what to do. For this, Allah Aurobindo says there are two ways of doing integral yoga, one by knowledge and one's own efforts, the other by reliance on the Divine Mother. In the second way, one has to offer one's mind, heart, and all to the Divine Mother for her force to work on it. Call her in all difficulties, have faith and bhakti. At first, it takes time, often a long time. For the consciousness to be prepared in this way during that time, many difficulties will come. But if one perseveres, a time comes when all is ready, the mother's force opens the consciousness fully to the divine, then all that must develop develops within, spiritual experiences comes, and with it the knowledge and the union with the divine. You say after several years you have not changed your nature. I only wish the external nature was so easy to transform that it could be done in a few years. You forgot also that the real problem is to get rid of the pervading ego in the nature. It is a task you have seriously tackled only a short time. It is not in a few months that can be done. Even the best sadhaks find many experiences, larger chances on the right plane. A yoga like this needs patience because it means a chance both of the radical motives and the details of the nature. The thing to be done is to stand back, observe, and reject, not to allow things to get hold of you, to keep your central will separate from them, call in the Divine Mother's force to meet them. If one does not get involved, often happens, then gets involved, disinvolved as soon as possible to go forward. That is what every yogi does. To be depressed because one cannot do everything in a rush is quite contrary to the truth of the matter. A stumble does not mean one is unfit, nor does prolonged difficulty mean that oneself the thing is impossible. The fact that you have to give up your ordinary work when you get depressed does not mean that you have not gained in steadiness. It means that the steadiness you have gained is not a personal virtue but depends on you keeping the contact with the Divine Mother, for it is her force that is behind all progress you can make. Learn to rely on that force more and more completely. Seek spiritual progress, even not for your own sake, but for the sake of the divine. Then you will go on smoothly. get the psychic opening in the most external physical consciousness. That and not despondency is the lesson you ought to draw from your present adverse experience, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Prayers and Meditations, August 21st, 1914. O Lord, Lord, the whole earth is in an upheaval. It groans and suffers, it is in agony. All the suffering that has descended upon it must not be in vain. Grant that all this bloodshed may produce a swifter germination of the seeds of beauty and light and love, which must blossom and cover the earth with its rich harvest. Out of the depths of this abysm of darkness, the whole being of the earth cries to thee that thou may give it air and light. It is stifling. Wilt thou not come to its aid? O Lord, what must we do to triumph? Hear us, for we must conquer at any price, break down every resistance. Appear.